Let's jump right into a paradox. Imagine you have the freedom to speak your mind, but you choose not to. That's exactly what we're going to unpack today, looking through the very specific lens of Thailand's lèse-majesté law. So here's the central question, right? If the freedom to speak is there, why on earth would anyone choose silence? It kind of feels like it goes against our basic instincts, doesn't it?
And the source material you were looking at gives us a really direct answer. It argues that this silence isn't because freedom is literally gone. It's because the price you might pay for speaking up is just incredibly high, and you have absolutely no idea what the result will be.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to dig into the law that's at the very heart of all of this. This is where we start to see what makes Thailand's lèse-majesté law so powerful.
So on paper, the law is known as Article 112 of the Thai Criminal Code. And it's pretty clear. It prohibits any insults, defamation, or threats against the monarchy. The key thing to know, the penalties are incredibly severe.
But here's the twist, and it's a big one. Most of us would look at a law like that and see it as a tool for punishment, right? You break the rule, you get punished. But the real power, it's argued, isn't in how often it's used to punish, but in the fact that it creates this invisible, unmeasurable boundary. And that boundary is so effective because the rules are all unwritten. I mean, who can file the complaint against you? What kind of statement actually crosses the line? Where exactly is that line between saying something safe and saying something that could land you in serious trouble? You don't know. And we humans, we are wired to fear a fuzzy, unknown risk way more than a clear, defined one.
So, if you're an individual trying to navigate that unclear risk, what do? Well, this is where silence stops being passive and starts becoming an active strategy. And it's not about loyalty, it's about making a rational choice.
Now, from the outside looking in, it's really easy to make an assumption. You might think, well, people are quiet about this because they have this unconditional reverence for the monarchy. But that assumption, it misses the real human calculation happening behind the scenes. In reality, what's happening is a constant personal cost-benefit analysis. You're weighing the potential risks to your job, to your future career, to your family and your relationships. Then you look at the potential upside and ask, does speaking out actually change anything politically? And now with social media, you have to add another risk. A single post, even years old, could suddenly become a huge problem.
And that brings us to this key idea. Silence, in this context, is not submission. It's not the same as agreeing with the status quo. It is the logical, calculated outcome when the potential costs are just too high and the benefits feel too low. It's just the rational thing to do.
So what happens when millions of people all individually make that same rational choice over and over again? Well, it scales up. A personal strategy becomes a societal norm. Let's look at how silence became, for many, the optimal behavior.
The sources suggest it's kind of a perfect storm of factors. You've got a cultural backdrop that tends to value harmony over direct confrontation. You add in a long history of political instability, military coups, and on top of that, a persistent ambiguity about the exact role of the monarchy in the whole system.
You mix all those things together, and over time, political speech itself just starts to feel meaningless. It feels dangerous. It feels like trouble you just don't need in your life. Nobody had to issue an order for people to be quiet. It just became a learned behavior. It became the path of least resistance.
Now, you would think that social media would just blow this whole culture of quiet wide open, right? More platforms, more voices. But here, we hit a really fascinating paradox. The very tools we thought would encourage expression might actually be making the silence even deeper.
So how does that work? Well, think about it. First, permanence. Anything you post can last forever. Second, your words can be screenshotted, taken out of context, and twisted into something you never meant. Third, surveillance. You have no idea who is watching or reading what you post. And finally, weaponization. It is so much easier for someone to click report on a post they disagree with than to actually engage in a discussion.
All of this leads to a phenomenon called learned silence, and this is a crucial distinction. People don't stop thinking, they don't stop having opinions or ideas, they just stop expressing them in public. The thoughts are all still there, they're just kept private. So, what is the ultimate price of all this? This widespread, rational, learned silence. This is where we see the real danger, when an entire society stops talking about its most difficult problems. And the danger is actually incredibly simple but also profound. Problems that aren't spoken about don't get solved. Frustrations, tensions, societal strains,
They don't just vanish because no one is talking about them. They just go underground, where they can fester, unseen and unaddressed.
And this really reframes the entire issue, doesn't it? The source argues that the core problem here isn't just about whether people can criticize a specific institution. The bigger, deeper issue is what happens when a society starts to lose its ability to talk to itself, to understand its own problems, and to figure out a path forward.
And it's so important to realize that this dynamic, this cost-benefit analysis of speech, isn't just about one law in one country. It can exist absolutely anywhere. Think about your own life, your workplace, certain online communities, maybe even the politics of your own country.
So, we want to leave you with that thought. This idea of rational silence is a really powerful lens for understanding why people do what they do. So the final question isn't just about Thailand. It's about looking around your own world and asking, where does this exist for me? What are the unmeasurable boundaries that shape what we all choose to say? And maybe more importantly, what we choose to leave unsaid?